few words today about sex and abuse. And I expect you're wondering what on earth sex has to do with abuse. But I want today to really connect with our safe relationship training concept and to put sex and abuse in the context of that safe relationship training, because very often what can happen is that in an abusive relationship, sex can be used as a tool. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit now and just go into that in a little bit more of a deeper way, so that we understand that we need to be consciously aware of what could be happening if we do end up in a dysfunctional situation, and understand that sex can be used in a number of ways. And you might want to go and have a look at the rest of the sex series that are out there and look at those other videos and look at them in the larger context and put them all together, and you will be able to see that they can all be used together, all the different areas as far as romance is concerned, our self-esteem, our safe relationship training, and so that we can understand that sex is potentially another tool, another weapon, if you will, that can be used against us if we're with someone who is particularly pathological or abusive. And one of the ways that sex can be used in an abusive situation is that it can be used to manipulate us, and it can be used to get us into a vulnerable position so that we can be more easily controlled. And in other words, our sexuality can be used against us if we're with someone who is dysfunctional, toxic and abusive, because sex and affection can be used to coerce us into a situation that we don't want to be in, potentially. It can also be used to deceive us into thinking that things are much better in the relationship than they are, because we often equate a good sex life with a healthy relationship and a relationship that's working. And that's not always the case, because sex can be used in order to draw us back in, and if it's withheld, it can be used to manipulate us in order to draw us back in as well. So it can be used to draw us back in by giving us good sex, amazing sex, or it can be used, on the other hand, by withholding it. So if someone withholds sex, then sometimes we tend to blame ourselves and wonder what's happening. What have I done? Why is this person rejecting me, etc.? But it could be a manipulation in order to get us to chase, in order potentially for us to give more than we want to give in the relationship, because we're fearful of abandonment and rejection. And abusers quite often pick up on our fears, and they will use those in order to manipulate us, so that we will put up with things that we wouldn't normally put up with, because we're fearful of losing the relationship. So sex can be used in a whole number of ways in order to coerce us and manipulate us, so that we will be groomed and manipulated into an agenda that the abuser has. And that is more than likely an agenda that fits in with their being able to continue the abuse until the person is ground down and they're unable to leave. So if we stand back, if we're in a relationship with someone who seems to be not quite what we thought they were, if we look closely at what's happening and look at the agenda, look at the purpose behind someone's behaviour, before we jump to conclusions as far as it being our fault, because often that guilt is instilled in the victim so that they are more easily manipulated. But it's your fault I'm like that. This is why I'm doing this, because it's your fault that this has happened. And that can keep us invested in the relationship, and it can also keep us giving and giving and giving to that other person in the hope that they will validate us, that they will come back to the person they were at the beginning. And in the beginning, during the honeymoon phase, during the phase where we're being love bombed and all the rest of it, that is a grooming process that can keep us hooked in for years, thinking that it's our fault. Why did they pull back? Why did they draw back? And it could be that they have hooked us in well and truly, and when they have got us firmly set in the situation, firmly convinced that they are the one, then they can manipulate us through what they found out about us, through our weaknesses, through our low self-esteem potentially. And in an abusive situation, the self-esteem and confidence are two of the things that are detrimentally affected in the victim, so that she's weakened, so that she's brainwashed, so that she's more easily, or he is more easily manipulated and controlled. And manipulation and control are two of the tools that an abuser will use. And sex is a primary weapon because it's one of the most intimate acts that we can engage in. And also it's an act that can convince us, if it's good sex, that we are in a good relationship. And so the abuser will use the sex to push and pull us into a situation where we're being drawn backwards and forwards through nice behaviour and then horrible behaviour, so that we will increasingly over time accept more horrible behaviour, because we keep wanting to get that good stuff back. And we want to get back to the good initial stage when we were drawn in. So sex, very good sex, very hot sex, words involved in that to convince us that we are wonderful, we're amazing, and that we're loved so much. And otherwise, why would we have such an amazing sex life? Are words and actions that can be used to keep us in a situation that is dangerous for us. And yet we can't leave because we keep getting the good stuff intermittently. So have a look at my video there on intermittent reinforcement as well. That's a really useful skill to understand that can